The Galactic Council Hall shimmered under white crystal lights filled with beings from hundreds of worlds. Every race had sent their finest, yet silence ruled the air as one human stood at the center. His name was Captain Ryan Hale, the representative of Earth. He was tall, calm, and quiet. His eyes didn't show fear, only patience. To the aliens watching him, humans were a mystery, a young species that had risen too fast and fought too fiercely. Rumors said that humans had no limits, that they could survive where others would die, that they smiled even when facing death. Many feared them. Others wanted to control them, but no one understood them. The Galactic Union wanted balance. They had faced wars and they feared another one if the humans kept expanding. So a secret plan was made. They would not fight the humans with weapons, they would use charm. From the inner star systems came Lyra Vell, an alien diplomat known across galaxies for her beauty and her skill. She had convinced tyrants to surrender, and made armies lay down their arms without a single shot. Her skin shimmered faintly blue, her eyes glowed softly like starlight, and her voice could melt through walls of anger. She was perfect. Her mission: make the human trust her, weaken his resolve, and end the human threat through seduction, not war. When Lyra entered the council chamber, the air changed. Even the guards looked away in awe. But Ryan didn't move. He didn't smile, didn't speak. He just looked at her with calm eyes like he already knew who she was and why she was there. That unsettled her more than any insult could have. "Captain Hale," she said softly, her voice graceful. "I am Lyra Vell, envoy of the Galactic Union. I have come to speak for peace." Ryan nodded once. "Then speak." Her tone turned warmer, smoother. "Your species moves fast, human, too fast. The Council fears your hunger for the stars. But I believe we can learn from each other. If we trust." Ryan's lips curved just slightly. "Trust is earned, not given," he said. "And peace is never made by pretending to smile." Her heart skipped. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had looked past her beauty and seen the game beneath. For a moment, she forgot her training. She forgot the practiced moves, the gestures meant to control. She just stood there, lost in those calm, steady human eyes. After the meeting, she watched him from a distance. The other ambassadors left, whispering about the human's coldness. But Lyra didn't see coldness. She saw control, power, and something else, pain maybe. He wasn't what she expected. Later that night, as she sat in her quarters, a hologram of her commander appeared. "Remember your mission, Lyra," the voice said sharply. "Humans are dangerous. Use your charm. Make him speak. Find his weakness. Do not fail." She bowed her head. "Yes, Commander." But her voice trembled. The next morning, she visited the human ship, Odyssey. The halls were simple, filled with humming lights and quiet machines. Humans worked with focus, talking softly, laughing at small jokes. It was so different from her world of perfect order and control. One mechanic, seeing her confusion, smiled. "First time on a human ship, ma'am?" Lyra nodded, unsure what to say. "Don't worry," he said. "We're not as scary as the stories say." She smiled back, but her heart felt strange. Why were they so kind? When she finally met Ryan again, he was staring out a large window into the stars. "You came alone," he said without turning. "Yes," she replied, stepping closer. "I thought perhaps we could talk." He looked at her reflection in the glass. "Talking is easy. The truth is harder." Lyra blinked. "Do you always doubt everyone, Captain?" "I don't doubt everyone," he said calmly. "Just those sent to make me fall." Her breath caught. He knew. Somehow he already knew. But there was no anger in his tone, only quiet certainty. Lyra tried to speak, to find her professional smile again, but her voice came out soft. "You think too much of yourself, human." He finally turned to her, eyes steady. "No, I think too much of peace." Silence filled the room. For the first time in her career, Lyra didn't know what move to make next. Every trained word, every perfect gesture felt useless. That night she looked out her window at the blue curve of Earth far below. Something in her chest felt heavy. This mission was supposed to be easy: charm the human, earn his trust, break his power. But something about him, something about the way he saw her, not as a weapon or a tool, but as a person, was changing everything inside her. Lyra didn't know it yet. But the greatest mission of her life had already failed, because the woman who came to control the human was already beginning to fall for him. And somewhere deep in the dark between stars, the universe itself held its breath, waiting to see what would happen when the heart of an alien and the soul of a human began to beat in rhythm. The next morning, Lyra woke early. The silver light of the twin suns filtered through the window of her guest chamber aboard the human ship Odyssey. She stared at her reflection in the mirror, trying to find the confident diplomat the galaxy admired. But the woman looking back seemed uncertain, her usually perfect posture softer, her eyes distant. She whispered to herself, "Remember the mission. Lyra, you are here to protect your people." But even as she said the words, they felt weak. Her wrist communicator blinked red. A message from the Galactic Union Council appeared. Her superior, the tall and cold General Varek, looked down at her through the hologram. His voice was calm but sharp like ice. "You are losing focus," he said. "The human captain must be influenced soon. He carries power that could shift alliances. We cannot allow Earth to gain dominance. Use your gifts, Lyra. Use charm. Make him trust you." Lyra lowered her eyes. "Understood, Commander." The screen vanished, leaving her in silence. She exhaled slowly and straightened her uniform, the silver fabric glinting faintly. She had done this 1,000 times before. Flirtation, persuasion, lies dressed as kindness. But for the first time, her heart didn't want to play the game. She walked toward the ship's command deck, her steps light, graceful, controlled. As she entered, human officers looked at her curiously, some with admiration, some with confusion. But Ryan didn't even glance up from his console. "Captain Hale," she said softly, "permission to observe your work?" He nodded without looking. "You don't need permission, just curiosity." She moved closer, watching the screens filled with data, navigation paths, and tactical symbols. "You trust machines a lot," she said. He smiled faintly. "Machines don't lie. People do." Lyra felt the sting in those words. Was that a warning? She couldn't tell. She tried to sound calm. "Do you think all people lie?" He turned to her then, his eyes calm and unreadable. "No, just the ones who hide behind pretty words." Her chest tightened. Somehow he could see right through her. Every false tone, every trained gesture. It was as if he already knew she was pretending. Still, she tried. That evening, she invited him to the diplomatic lounge for a private dinner. The room was dimly lit, stars glittering beyond the glass walls. Human music played softly, a slow melody full of emotion she didn't understand. When he arrived, she greeted him with a smile. "For peace between our species," she said, raising a glass of luminous blue wine. He studied her face for a long moment before clinking his glass gently against hers. "For peace," he said. They talked. She asked questions about Earth, its oceans, its people, its strange emotions. He told her about laughter, about stories told around campfires, about risking everything for someone you love. She couldn't believe how much feeling humans carried in their voices. They didn't hide behind formality. They lived through emotion. Lyra found herself laughing, genuinely laughing. It had been years since she'd done that. When she realized it, she froze. Her mission, her duty, what was she doing? "Something wrong?" Ryan asked, noticing her silence. She looked at him and whispered, "I was just thinking how strange humans are." He leaned back, his tone light. "We think the same about you aliens. You talk like logic rules everything, but you bleed the same as we do." That line struck her deeply. For a moment, she saw not a soldier, not a threat, but a man, calm, strong, honest. And she hated how much she wanted to hear him speak again. Later, when he walked her back to her quarters, she hesitated at the door. "Captain," she said quietly, "do you always treat your enemies with kindness?" He looked at her, eyes serious now. "You're not my enemy, Lyra, not unless you want to be." Her heart raced. No one had ever said her name like that before. With warmth, not control. She wanted to say something, anything, but words failed her. When the door slid shut, she leaned against it, breathing hard. That night, sleep wouldn't come. She replayed every word, every look. She told herself it was part of the mission, part of the act. But deep inside, she knew she was lying. To her commanders, to her people, and worst of all, to herself. The next day, she met Ryan again near the observation deck. The endless stars shimmered around them. "Humans," she said softly. "You risk so much for others." "Why?" He turned, surprised by the question. "Because we were all strangers once," he said simply. The line hit her like a pulse through her veins. So simple, yet so powerful. Lyra felt tears in her eyes and quickly turned away before he could see. She had been sent to use him, but now she feared she was the one being changed. The galaxy saw humans as dangerous, but she was beginning to think the real danger was how easily they could touch the heart. As she looked into the stars, she knew her report to the council would be false. She couldn't tell them the truth. She couldn't tell them that the human they feared most was the only being who had ever made her feel alive. The Odyssey drifted through the cold silence of space, its engines humming softly. Days had passed since the dinner, but Lyra's heart still beat faster whenever she thought of Ryan. She tried to bury those feelings under duty, but every time she looked at him calm, focused, honest, her resolve weakened. Her reports to the Galactic Union grew shorter and colder. She no longer sent full details about human plans or technology. Instead, she filled them with harmless updates hiding the truth. Each message was a quiet act of rebellion. She told herself it was just temporary, that she would find a way to complete her mission later. But deep inside she knew, something inside her had already shifted. Meanwhile, Ryan noticed everything. He wasn't a fool. He had seen her secret transmissions, traced the faint signal coming from her quarters. Yet he didn't confront her. He only watched, waiting. To him, Lyra wasn't the enemy anymore. She was a question that he couldn't stop asking himself. One evening, while inspecting the ship's lower decks, a power surge hit. Sparks burst from the ceiling, alarms blared, and smoke filled the air. Ryan rushed toward the engineering bay, and there she was, Lyra, standing frozen in the middle of flickering lights. Her hands raised as a plasma coil exploded beside her. Without a thought, Ryan leapt forward, grabbed her, and threw her to the floor as the reactor wall split open with a roar. The two tumbled together, his arms shielding her as molten energy flashed past. When the noise faded, Ryan groaned, his uniform torn and smoke rising from his sleeve. Lyra stared up at him in shock. You saved me," she whispered. He looked down, his voice quiet but firm. "That's what humans do." Her throat tightened. No one had ever risked their life for her before. Not for an alien, not for someone sent to betray them. Later in the med bay, Lyra sat on the bed as Ryan's crew bandaged his arm. He waved them off, his usual calm never breaking. She watched him carefully, every movement precise, every word gentle but strong. When the others left, she whispered, "You should have let me die, Captain. It would have been easier. For both of us." Ryan turned to her, a small smile on his lips. "Easy doesn't mean right, Lyra." Her eyes stung. That one simple sentence shattered her walls. After that day, things changed. Their conversations became longer, deeper. They talked about stars, dreams, and the strange paths that led them here. Lyra shared memories of her homeworld. The crystal cities, the endless silver seas, the rules that bound every citizen from birth. Ryan told her about Earth, the rain, the laughter, the way humans always rebuilt no matter how many times they fell. Sometimes she caught herself smiling when he entered the room. Sometimes she forgot to report at all, but far away her silence was noticed. The Galactic Union Council began to suspect. Her commanding officer, General Verak, studied her transmissions and frowned. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "She's been compromised." Orders were sent. If she could not complete her mission soon, she would be replaced, by force. Unaware of this, Lyra sat in her quarters, staring at the stars outside her window. A small glass sphere rested in her hand, a memory crystal glowing faintly blue. Inside it, her orders replayed again and again. Charm the human. Make him trust you. Bring him down. She squeezed the sphere until her hand trembled. "I can't," she whispered. A soft knock startled her. The door slid open and Ryan stepped inside. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. Lyra shook her head, hiding the crystal. "The stars are too loud tonight," she said with a faint smile. Ryan chuckled quietly. "You know, for someone who was sent to study humans, you've picked up a lot of our habits." She looked at him, her voice fragile. "And if I told you I wasn't studying anymore?" He took a slow breath, meeting her eyes. "Then I'd say you found something better to believe in." For a long moment, neither spoke. The stars beyond the window glowed brighter, reflecting in their eyes. Lyra felt the distance between duty and desire closing. She wanted to tell him everything, to confess who she truly was, why she came, what she was supposed to do. But fear stopped her. She didn't want to lose the one person who made her feel human. Still, her guilt grew heavier. That night she deactivated her communicator. The Council's voice would not reach her again. But the next morning the universe decided otherwise. Ryan's second-in-command stormed into the bridge holding a data pad. "Captain," he said, his face pale, "we detected a coded signal last night, originating from Lyra Vell's quarters." Ryan's jaw tightened. The moment he had been waiting for had come. He went to her room, the door opening with a soft hiss. Lyra stood there, frozen, the memory crystal glowing faintly on her desk. She turned slowly, her eyes full of fear. "You knew," she said quietly. Ryan nodded. "Since the day you arrived." Tears filled her eyes. "Then why didn't you expose me?" He took a step closer, his voice low but steady. "Because I wanted to believe you'd choose truth over orders." She couldn't hold back anymore. The tears fell. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want to lie, but I didn't know how to stop." Ryan sighed softly. "Then stop now. Tell me everything." Outside, stars burned silently, watching two hearts, one human, one alien, standing at the edge of trust and betrayal. Lyra looked into his eyes, trembling. "If I tell you, everything will change." Ryan's answer was quiet, full of calm strength. "Then let it change." And with that, she took her first real breath of freedom. The dance of secrets was ending, but a storm far greater was already on its way. The Odyssey drifted near the border of neutral space, surrounded by the quiet hum of the cosmos. But inside the ship, peace was an illusion. The tension between duty and love, truth and lies, grew heavier with every heartbeat. Lyra sat in her quarters, her hands shaking over the console. Ryan now knew everything. She had confessed her mission, the manipulation, the false peace talks, the orders to make him fall in love so his loyalty could be used against humanity. She expected anger, disgust, maybe even imprisonment, but instead he had only said, "Thank you for telling me the truth." Those words haunted her. He should have hated her, but he didn't. That kindness hurt more than any punishment. For the first time in her life, Lyra didn't know who she was serving anymore. The Galactic Union had trained her to control emotions, to use charm as a weapon. But now, every time she looked at Ryan, she saw something real, something worth protecting. A sudden alert broke the silence. Her communicator, which she had turned off days ago, began to flash violently. A cold, sharp voice echoed through the room. "Agent Lyra Vell," General Varek's voice boomed. "Your silence is noted as treason. You have 24 hours to complete your mission or you will be extracted by force." Her blood ran cold. She knew what extracted meant. They would send an assault fleet. They would destroy the Odyssey and everyone aboard if they believed she had turned. Lyra's chest tightened. She rushed to the command deck, her footsteps echoing through the hallways. When she arrived, Ryan was already there, standing before the main screen that displayed multiple red blips moving toward them. "Union ships," his second-in-command reported. "War-class cruisers, 3 of them. They're locking coordinates on us." Ryan didn't speak for a moment. Then he turned his gaze to Lyra. His expression was calm but heavy. "They're here for you, aren't they?" She nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "They think I've betrayed them. And they're right." Ryan's tone was quiet. "You didn't betray them, Lyra. You just stopped lying." She looked at him with wide eyes. "You don't understand. They will destroy this ship to erase me. You need to escape." But Ryan only shook his head. "We don't run from truth, please," she begged, grabbing his arm. "They'll kill you." He met her eyes, steady and firm. "If they kill me, then they'll learn what happens when you push a human too far." Lyra couldn't speak. There was something in his voice, a deep, unbreakable resolve that no fear could touch. She realized this was why her mission had failed. Because humans didn't bow. They stood. Moments later, the first blast hit. The Odyssey shuddered as blue plasma tore across its shields. The crew scrambled to their stations, alarms blaring. Ryan turned to her. "You know their tactics. Help me stop them." She hesitated for a heartbeat, then nodded. She rushed to the tactical console, her fingers flying across the holographic controls. "They're using quantum lock beacons. I can jam 2, but not 3. 2's enough," Ryan said, gripping the controls. "We'll handle the 3rd the human way." Under her guidance, the Odyssey twisted through the stars, dodging plasma fire. Lyra rerouted shield power, disabling the enemy's targeting sensors. The ship trembled, but it held. As they fought side by side, Lyra realized something. She wasn't acting anymore. She wasn't pretending to be loyal or charming or useful. She was fighting for him. For them. Finally, she broke through the enemy network and sent a false code. "They'll think we're destroyed," she said, breathless. "They'll stand down." Ryan exhaled slowly, sweat glistening on his brow. "You just saved my ship, Lyra." Her voice cracked. "No, I just betrayed my people." He stepped closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Maybe you saved them too. They just don't know it yet." For a long time, neither spoke. The sound of distant static filled the bridge. Lyra's eyes shimmered with tears. "What now?" she whispered. Ryan looked at the stars outside, his jaw firm. "Now we disappear. Both our sides will call us traitors. But maybe somewhere out there we can start over." She shook her head. "You'd abandon your world for me?" He turned to her, a small smile touching his lips. "You changed mine already." Those words hit deeper than any laser blast. For a moment, Lyra forgot the war, the orders, the lies. She only saw him, the human who refused to give up on her even when the whole galaxy did. Hours later, the Odyssey slipped into the shadow of a dying star. They had escaped for now. As Lyra looked out the window, she whispered softly, "I was sent to make you fall for me, Ryan Hale." He turned to her, eyes calm, voice quiet. "You didn't need to try." And for the first time in her life, Lyra smiled without guilt. But deep in her heart, she knew peace never lasted long. Somewhere beyond the stars, the Union was already preparing their next move. The universe had just witnessed the impossible, an alien diplomat and a human soldier standing together. And that was something the galaxy would not forgive easily. The Odyssey had gone dark. Its engines were silent, its lights dimmed to ghostly glows. From the outside, it looked like a dead ship drifting through space. But deep inside, two lives still burned bright. Ryan Hale and Lyra Vell, fugitives from two worlds. They had escaped the Union's assault barely alive. The Odyssey was damaged, most systems offline, but it still held together, like them. The galaxy had labeled them traitors, the human who betrayed his command and the alien who fell for her target. They hid in the shadow of a dying moon, where the sunlight never reached. Ryan worked tirelessly on repairs, welding panels, rewiring conduits, and patching hull breaches with scavenged scrap. Lyra watched him in silence, feeling something strange, a mix of awe, guilt, and warmth. Humans, she thought, were truly relentless. "Rest, Captain," she said softly one evening as sparks flashed around him. "You've been awake for 30 hours. He looked up, face smudged with grease but eyes bright. "If I stop, the air systems stop. And if that happens, we both stop breathing." Lyra knelt beside him, gently taking the tool from his hand. "Then let me help," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You know how to fix a fusion regulator?" "No," she admitted, smiling faintly. "But I can hand you the tools." "It's better than watching you fall over." He laughed, a sound that echoed warmly in the empty corridor. For a brief moment, the weight of betrayal and war lifted. They were just two people surviving together in the dark. Days passed. The Odyssey slowly came back to life. They rationed food, recycled water, and kept their communications offline to avoid detection. Ryan taught Lyra how to brew coffee, though she found it bitter. She taught him how to use her species' starlight maps, tracing constellations invisible to human eyes. At night, they would sit by the observation deck, staring into the endless black. Lyra sometimes rested her head against the glass, whispering, "Do you think the galaxy will ever forgive us?" Ryan's voice was steady. "Maybe not. But we didn't run to be forgiven. We ran to be free." She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the stars. "Free," she repeated softly. "I've never known what that felt like until now." But peace never stayed long in their lives. One morning, the scanner flashed red. A faint signal pulsed from the far side of the moon. Lyra's heart sank. It was her people's encryption code. The Union had found them. She stared at the screen, frozen. "They came for me." Ryan checked the data. "No, they came for us." He quickly began shutting down systems, masking their heat trail. But the signal was too close. "We've got minutes before they lock on," he said. Lyra stepped forward. "Ryan, listen to me. If I go to them, they might spare you." He turned sharply. "No, please," she said, grabbing his arm. "You don't understand. They'll brand you a war criminal. They'll execute you just for being near me." He looked down at her trembling hands. "Lyra, when I saved you, I didn't ask what it would cost. I'm not starting now." Tears filled her eyes. "You can't win against them." Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe not. but I can make sure they remember what it means to fight a human." He ran to the controls, activating the emergency defense grid. The ship groaned, power surging through half-repaired systems. Lyra stood frozen, torn between love and fear. Then she made a choice. She sprinted to the communications console and began typing in her clearance codes. "I can jam their targeting system for a few minutes," she said. "That's all the time we'll get." Ryan gave her a quick nod. "Then let's make it count." The Union dropships appeared on the scanner, descending fast. Explosions shook the moon's surface as their troops landed nearby. Ryan powered the ship's thrusters. "Hold on." The Odyssey blasted upward, rising through clouds of dust and rock. Enemy ships fired, blue plasma streaking past. Lyra rerouted power from life support to shields. "You're burning too hot," she shouted. "We'll live long enough to regret it," Ryan replied. They shot through the debris field, twisting and diving. One of the enemy ships clipped their tail, sending sparks flying. Ryan gritted his teeth, fighting the controls. Finally, with Lyra's help, he triggered a cloaking pulse. The stars blinked and the Odyssey vanished. Silence returned. The radar went blank. The Union ship circled aimlessly, unable to track them. Inside the cockpit, Ryan let out a slow breath. "We did it," he said. Lyra slumped in her seat, shaking. "For now." When the danger passed, they hid once again, this time on a small, forest-covered planet far from any charted route. They built a small shelter near a river, repaired what they could, and learned to live quietly. Ryan fished in the shallow streams while Lyra collected glowing fruit from the trees. Sometimes they would sit together by the fire, no words needed, just the sound of wind through alien leaves. But even in peace, Lyra felt something new, a strange sickness, a heaviness in her body she couldn't explain. She tried to hide it, but Ryan noticed. "You're pale," he said one night. "You should rest." "I'm fine," she lied. But deep down, fear gnawed at her heart. She didn't know it yet, but what she carried inside her would change everything. The galaxy might have called them traitors, but soon it would have a new name for them, something no one could have imagined, the parents of the first child born of two worlds. The forest planet of Laura 9 was peaceful under twin moons, glowing silver across endless rivers and tall blue trees. For months, Ryan and Lyra had lived hidden beneath its skies, far from the wars and politics of the galaxy. They had built a home from parts of the Odyssey, surrounded by glowing flowers and whispering winds. At night, they sat by the fire, speaking softly, sometimes laughing, sometimes silent. Ryan had learned to hunt with alien tools. Lyra had learned to cook with human spices. Life had become simple, almost normal. But peace is fragile, especially when the galaxy calls you a traitor. One morning, Ryan woke to the sound of a storm, but it wasn't thunder. The ground shook. The air shimmered with static. He rushed outside and his blood ran cold. Above the trees, giant shadows moved. Ships, Union warships. Lyra stumbled out of the shelter, her hair tangled, eyes wide. "They found us," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan's hand instinctively went to his sidearm. "Get inside," he said. "Seal the shelter." But Lyra didn't move. She looked at the sky, her face pale. "Ryan, I never told them where we were. They must have tracked my DNA. They won't stop this time." Ryan turned to her, his jaw tight. "Then they'll learn why humans never surrender." Within minutes, the Odyssey's old defense systems powered up. The ship was half buried in the ground, more a home than a war machine now, but Ryan had never let its weapons rust. He sprinted through the control deck, flipping switches, his voice calm despite the chaos. "Lyra, reroute power from the shield dome to the forward cannons," he ordered. She nodded quickly, her fingers moving over the glowing console. "Done, but we can't take much heat. The generators are unstable." Ryan gave her a small, grim smile. "Then we make it count." The first plasma bolt hit moments later. The ground exploded, throwing dirt and flame into the air. The shields held for now. Lyra's heart pounded. She looked at Ryan, who stood tall, unshaken, his eyes locked on the horizon. "Why do you always smile when danger comes?" she asked, her voice trembling. He looked at her for just a second, his tone soft. "Because fear wastes time." The second blast hit closer. The Odyssey shuddered. Ryan activated the targeting system and fired back. A bright beam shot upward, striking one of the enemy crafts, sending it spinning into the forest in flames. Lyra gasped. "That's one?" "Two more to go," Ryan said, voice steady. The next attack tore through their power lines. Sparks flew. The control deck plunged into dim light. Lyra rushed to the generator, rerouting energy manually. The heat burned her palms, but she didn't stop. "They'll destroy the ship," she cried. "Then we destroy their will first," Ryan said, slamming his hand on the launch control. A volley of missiles fired from the Odyssey's belly, streaking across the sky like falling stars. They hit the enemy flagship dead on, lighting the heavens with a blue-white explosion. The forest fell silent. Only the crackle of distant fires remained. Ryan exhaled slowly, leaning on the console. "That should buy us some time." Lyra turned to him, shaking. "They won't stop, Ryan. They'll send more." "I know," he said softly. "But they'll think twice before chasing ghosts again." Before he could say more, Lyra staggered. Her knees buckled. "Lyra!" Ryan caught her before she hit the floor. Her skin felt fever-hot. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. "It's nothing," she whispered. "I just feel strange." He lifted her onto a cot, his heart pounding. The ship's med scanner still worked, though faintly. He activated it and watched as the screen filled with data. But what it showed made his breath stop. "Lyra," he said quietly, his voice trembling. "You're pregnant." Her eyes widened. For a moment, neither spoke. The only sound was the hum of the med scanner. "That's not possible," she whispered. "Our DNA? It can't." Ryan stared at the glowing image on the screen, a faint pulse, a small heartbeat. "It did," he said softly. "You're carrying life, Lyra. Our life." Tears filled her eyes. "If the Union finds out—" "They won't," he said firmly. "I'll protect you both." She looked at him, voice breaking. "Ryan, this child will never be accepted by either side. They'll call it an abomination." He took her hand gently. "Then we'll make our own side." She laughed weakly through her tears. "You humans, you always think you can rebuild the universe." He smiled faintly. "Maybe we can start with just one life." That night, as Lyra slept, Ryan stood by the window watching the stars. He knew the truth now. There was no going back. This wasn't just about survival anymore. Their child was proof that the galaxy was wrong, that two hearts from different worlds could beat as one. Outside, in the ashes of battle, the air shimmered faintly. Unknown to them, a small Union probe floated near the wreckage, its sensors recording everything, the human, the alien, and the impossible child growing within her. As it transmitted the data across the galaxy, a message echoed into the void. Subject Lyra Vell confirmed alive. Biological anomaly detected. Human hybrid confirmed. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. Ryan didn't know it yet. But his greatest fight was no longer for survival. It was for a future that neither side would ever allow. The forest of Lyra 9 was calm again, but peace had become an illusion. Weeks had passed since the battle, and the wreckage of the Union ships still lay scattered across the valley, silent reminders of what Ryan and Lyra had survived. The Odyssey was now a home more than a ship, half buried in vines and glowing moss. Inside, Lyra lay resting, her skin pale but her eyes full of light. The child inside her grew stronger every day. Ryan never left her side for long. He repaired what he could, hunted for food, and watched the skies with a soldier's instinct. He knew the Union would come again. They always did. But now he had something greater than survival to fight for. One quiet morning, Lyra stirred. "Ryan," she whispered. He turned quickly, kneeling beside her. "I'm here." Her lips curved faintly. "You never sleep." He smiled a little. "Humans don't rest when they're guarding their universe." Lyra reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You really believe that, don't you?" He nodded. "You and this child are my universe." Her eyes shimmered with tears. "If my people knew what we created, they'd destroy it." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees. But beneath the soft whispers, something else moved, a faint hum, mechanical, searching. Ryan's gaze snapped upward. He knew that sound. A Union probe. He ran to the scanner console, his heart pounding. A red light blinked on the screen. The probe was broadcasting. Someone out there already knew. "Lyra," he said urgently, "we have to move. They found us." She tried to stand but winced, holding her stomach. "Ryan, I can't travel now. The baby's coming soon." He froze. His mind raced. If they stayed, they'd be found. If they moved, she might not survive the journey. Lyra saw the conflict in his eyes and placed her hand on his. "You can't fight every battle with guns, Captain." He took a deep breath, then nodded. Then we hide in plain sight. Using scraps from the Odyssey's systems, Ryan rigged a false heat signature far to the north. He uploaded decoy life signs and sent a fake distress beacon. The probe picked it up immediately and shot off into the clouds. When it was gone, he slumped against the wall, exhausted. That'll buy us a few days. Lyra smiled weakly. You're getting good at being unpredictable, he grinned. I'm human. It's what we do best. 2 nights later, under the pale glow of the moons, Lyra cried out. Ryan rushed to her side as the storm of birth began. The small shelter filled with light from the emergency lamps, her voice echoing softly through the night. Hours passed. She gripped his hand so tightly he thought it might break, but he didn't care. He whispered encouragement, stories, promises, anything to give her strength. Then at last a cry filled the air. Tiny, soft, alive. Ryan froze, his heart pounding. Lyra smiled through tears as he lifted the small infant. Half human, half alien. The baby's skin glowed faintly silver under the light, and its eyes opened, bright, radiant, reflecting both of their worlds. Lyra reached out, touching the child's cheek. She's beautiful, she whispered. Ryan could barely speak. She's ours. For the first time in months, he felt hope. Real hope. Not the kind built on war or survival, but something pure. A beginning. Lyra held the baby close. What will we call her? He looked toward the rising sun and said softly, Starborn. Days turned into weeks, and word of the impossible birth spread across the galaxy. The Union tried to bury the news, but secrets never stayed silent. Rumors spread among soldiers and scientists about a hybrid child born of love, not conquest. Some called it a miracle, others called it blasphemy. But everyone listened. On distant human colonies, people whispered of the woman with silver eyes and the human who defied empires for love. Lyra grew stronger each day, though the fear of discovery never left her. She often stood by the window, cradling her daughter, watching the stars. She shouldn't have to live in hiding, she said softly. Ryan joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Then we'll give her a world worth living in. Lyra smiled faintly. You talk as if you can change the galaxy. He kissed her forehead. We already did. Months later, a message pulsed across the old Union networks, a signal not of war, but of peace. A transmission encoded in both human and alien languages. It wasn't sent by any government. It was sent by Ryan Hale. The message was simple. We were enemies once. We were taught to fear what was different, but love has proven stronger than command. Stronger than blood, stronger than the laws of 2 worlds. The child of 2 species now lives among the stars. Her name is Hope. If you can't accept her, then the future will, because she is the future. The message spread faster than the Union could stop it. Across the stars, millions listened. Some wept, some raged. But for the first time in generations, both humans and aliens began to dream of peace. Lyra watched the transmission replay, her eyes bright with pride. You just started a revolution with words, she said. Ryan smiled quietly. Sometimes words are the sharpest weapons. Outside, their daughter laughed, reaching toward the rising sun, the first true sunrise of a united sky. And as the light washed over their world, Ryan whispered to Lyra, You were sent to charm a human, but you ended up saving humanity. Lyra smiled, her voice soft as starlight. No, Ryan. We saved each other. Under that new dawn, the story of the fugitive lovers became legend, proof that even in a vast and divided galaxy, a single human heart could still change the stars.